Hey guys, Michael J. Crawford here, and welcome to, what part is this? 14, yeah, 14. Trying to get through it, but unfortunately in part 13, Moonjumper actually asked, well, didn't ask a question so much as left a really, really long comment. So here's the comment. Yeah, it's kind of on the long side, but we're going to break this down a little bit before we get into some more stuff because, I think it's worth looking at.
But wait, Salty. I left you a long comment the other day, and you said it wasn't worth taking your time to even read it, let alone answer it. So what's the deal with that?
Oh, yeah, well, I don't care what you think.
Well,
No, I don't.
you, Salty.
Anyway, the reason that I actually think that Moonjumper reviews is worth looking at is because, unlike Herman, Moonjumper is actually a reasonably intelligent person.
You, Salty.
But that being said, I also have to kind of take issue with what Moonjumper Review says in a couple of points in his comment. So, in his comment, Moonjumper says, the Technobabble in the TNG era tended to be monotonous and way overdone. Agreed. But at least they tended to hire physicists and other experts to serve as consultants, so that their complete nonsense at least sounded somewhat credible. All right, so let me say this. Technically, you're kind of sort of right in that they have hired various science consultants all the way back, by the way, through to the Cage of the original series. But that doesn't mean it sounds credible, because the information either becomes laughingly dated like it did in the Cage.
Our destination is the Talos star group. Our time warp, factor 7.
Is Earth all right?
The same old Earth, and you'll see it very soon.
And you won't believe how fast you can get back. Well, the time barrier's been broken.
To the, well, frankly, kind of stupid sounding technobabble of TNG.
Sir, could it be law?
No, sir. My brother's positronic brain has a Type L phase discriminating amplifier. Mine is a Type R.
Type R.
To the hysterically bad technobabble of Voyager.
So, we'd be looking for a subspace instability in the event horizon. What would make it show up on our sensors? Warp particles. If we saturate the event horizon with warp particles, we might be able to see them escaping through the rupture we made when we entered.
So yeah, I'm sorry. I just don't see the technobabble of prior generations of Trek as being all that much better or more realistic than in the current generation of Trek. Now, Moonjumper does go on to suggest that the Discoveryverse writers are the same people who told us about sonar in space and ships that run on magic mushrooms. Well, I was about to concede that point until I started thinking about the sonar in space and started thinking, why does that seem so vaguely familiar? Sound in space. Sound in space.
Holding, Mr. DePaul. Screen's firm, sir. Extremely powerful sonic vibrations. Decibels 18 to the 12th power.
So, just to be clear about all this, I'm not defending the use of the mycelial network or sonar in space, but I'm also not going to say that it's any worse than breaking the time barrier or Data's Type L processor or, well, sound in space. So it's just stupid technobabble stuff that has been in Trek all along. And technobabble is generally bad, and that's why I prefer it to be kept to a minimum. For example, in one of my favorite episodes, a little piece of technobabble was used, but it was in subtle enough way to where you didn't really care.
We saw this thing hovering over the planet, slicing out chunks of it with a force beam.
Did you run a scanner check on it? What kind of a beam?
Pure anti-proton. Absolutely pure.
Now, yes, it is completely true that antiprotons are a real thing in theoretical physics. However, a antiproton beam, as described by Commodore Decker, is of course complete and utter bullshit. However, Kirk's reaction was enough to just sell the idea that a weapon that could project a beam of pure antiprotons was an extremely formidable force, and that's really all we needed. The same is true of the hull of the Doomsday Machine.
Am I correct in assuming that a fusion explosion of 97 megatons will result if a Starship impulse engine is overloaded?
No, sir. 97.835 megatons.
Now, you might think that I'm a little upset about how pedantic they get about the number of megatons that an impulse engine would release in an overload. But actually, no. That line of dialogue makes perfect sense to me. Not because of some technobabble-y thing, but because of the simple fact that it's always important to reestablish that Vulcans are dicks. However, all that being said...
97.835. Will it be powerful enough to destroy that thing out there?
Negative, Captain. Its hull is pure neutronium. There is no known way of blasting through it.
So, much like the antiproton beam of earlier in this same episode, Spock's use of the word neutronium is complete and utter bullshit. However, just like with the antiproton, it makes a certain amount of sense just in context. All we really need to know is that whatever the Doomsday Machine is made of, it's extraordinarily dense and therefore impossible to blast through. And contextual lines state as much, which is perfectly fine. What I don't like is when Technobabble becomes its own language, like what we get ad nauseum on Voyager. In the case of neutronium, just like with antiprotons, neutronium is actually a real theoretical substance. Unlike antiprotons, it's actually not really a particle, even though it's composed of neutrons. It's considered a noble gas, but a theoretical one that may or may not exist at the heart of neutron stars. All that being said, well, it's still just a bunch of bullshit. But at least it's not the kind of crap we get in other shows. So with all that out of the way, you might be wondering, why in the world did I spend so much time responding to a single comment from Moonjumper? And, well, really, there's a couple of reasons. One, of course, like I said earlier, is that Moonjumper's response was an intelligent one, even if I disagree with him. And since he's not an idiot like Herman...
You something.
Since he's not an idiot like Herman, I figured that it warranted a response. The other thing is, and this is just... I've just got to be honest here, this has been a really difficult couple of weeks for me. I'm sure you guys have noticed that while I put out a few videos fairly quickly, and then I've been in kind of a lull this last week. And the honest to goodness truth is that the medication that I take to treat some of the symptoms for my MS ran out, and I've been fighting with the pharmacy, and I won't be getting a refill for several more days, and it's just been extraordinarily difficult for me to do much of anything. And, well, it was nice to actually spend some time just talking about some of the fun of Trek, even if it is some of the BS of Technobabble. So thank you for that, Moonjumper, and, too bad Herman can't come up with something good.
You something.
Well, sadly, I have basically run out of ways to stall, and despite not feeling that great, I'm going to have to continue on the Section 31 review. So, without further ado, let's check in on the Section 31 gang. Okay, so the next few minutes of this movie are... well, pretty much the same kind of crap we've been getting for the first half of this movie. But pretty much it's all about hunting down who the mole is. So the overwhelming evidence is that it must be Zeph. And so they try to track down Zeph, but Zeph turns out to be dead. But Zeph just happens to have Rachel Garrett's DNA on him. And when they scan Rachel Garrett's fingernails, she has Zeph's DNA under her fingernails, and so it's pretty cut and dry that it was her that killed Zeph. Somehow she managed to overpower the cybernetically enhanced super Australian or whatever. Now, that doesn't make sense in and of itself, and of course we'll find out later on that she is, of course, not the mole. And while they do say that the person who actually is the mole must have planted the DNA evidence on her, I don't think they actually say how they could have planted, because how do you put the person's DNA under your fingernails? I mean, look, I know this is Star Trek future tech crap. Maybe you could like rig up some kind of micro transporter thing or something. But you gotta throw something out there. You gotta say something about it. This is just such a load of crap. And I was quite happy with just giving it a handful of turds just based on the crap I showed you, right? Then we get this line.
And you know I didn't do this. You are just terrified of anyone with a moral compass.
And deep down in that pure little heart, you're actually a chaos goblin, aren't you?
I hope that you enjoyed my video attraction. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as a reaction. Please check the links below to check out the video I was riffing on. And if you like what I do, join my friends on Patreon. Andreas T, Jason Rogers, Sean Gaclone, Twinkle Teaches, Leighton Kresman, Lee Crystal, Laura Finney, Thomas Potts, 47 Yorktown, Rural Hess, Wchia Daisuke, Firetail, T Stoney, Indie Tiger, Captain Fandom Nerd.